to mind. I don't owe no one, no obligation. No one owes me none, so everything is fine, fine. I said I am that I am, I am, I am, I am. I am that I am, I am, I am, I am. I am that I am, I am, I am, I am. I am that I am, I am, I am, I am. Serious business. There is a time for everything, and for everything there is a season. So man and man must reason. So I think it's prime time that we address some more issues. Simple information I will use. No rocket science to get you confused. So relax your mind. Make sure everything is fine while I take you down a poetic line. Trick us with campaign promises. We won't stay at ease. That's the way it is. We've waited in vain, hoping you'll ease the strain. But you now refrain. You now refrain. I remember you say Liberation Day, and I ask, you sure is that you want to...
And a good night to Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique. Once again, it's time for Talking Points. My name's Sheldon Scott, and I will be with you until the 10 o'clock hour. Saying a special good night to all of you joining us via our Facebook page. That's Talking Points GND. All of you joining us via YouTube, via Talking Points page there.
Yellow, yellow, all the way is what everybody says.
And those of you joining us via our website, talkingpointsgrenada.com.
Teeth get yellow, house get yellow, bus get yellow, man get yellow, even green get yellow, and so says 11-4.
You're just letting the numbers build as usual. It's now 2 minutes after the hour of 8 o'clock. It's been a long day today. Yeah, I've been out since roughly 7 a.m. Yeah, I've been up since 4 a.m. I've been out since 7 a.m. I won't get home most likely until about 11:30, 12 a.m. And then I've got to be out by 7 a.m. again. Yeah, it's been a long day. Well, you feel sorry for me. All you couldn't say, Sheldon, stay home tonight and rest.
Never know yellow would treat us so. When you trick us with campaign promises, we won't stay at ease. That's the way it is. We've waited in vain, hoping you'll ease the strain, but you now refrain. You now refrain.
And the first in on the YouTube, Wilma, good night to you, and Gemma. And let me see, Christopher is there, Clive is there. A good night to all of you over there on the YouTube. And then on the Facebook page, let me say a special good night to Kathy, Dwight, Janet, and Williams. Yeah. Good night to each and every one of you. Remember, folks, you got to like and share. Like and share. I'm only seeing 2 shares there. No, everybody viewing, you need to like and share. And remember, when it comes to the YouTube page especially, you need to subscribe to the page and get others to subscribe. Let's see if we could get it up. Right now, we're just on the cusp of having 700 subscribers. Let's see if we could get that past 800 before the end of the year and up to 1,000 early in the new year. All right, so we've got to get our friends, our family, everybody to subscribe. Not just to view, subscribe as well. And good night to you.
Although things are turning at a very slow pace, we now run the race. 5 years is a lot of space.
And don't you all worry, those of you that are listening overseas, you don't have to feel too different to us here. Our nights have been cold as what? Yeah.
Promises, we won't stay at ease. That's the way it is. We've waited in vain, hoping you'll ease the strain, but you now refrain.
So remember, it is Talking Points.
Busy governing,
We're also live on CRFM 89.5.
busy neglecting, busy inflicting poverty.
Little children, all you have to listen. All right.
Can never be wrong, but
Little children, behave. When Papa is speaking, little children, behave.
they're sucking money like water in foam. And rehire the Imanis. Less stress on the economy. You are Manchester, hold up the country.
And folks, we're keeping the phone lines open. So 440-7377. That's 440-7377. And as promised, today we had the interdiction. is it interdiction is the proper word to use there? Okay, we had the leader of His Majesty's opposition, former Prime Minister Dr. the Right Honorable Keith Mitchell. He gave his views on the estimates for revenue and expenditure 2023, the budget statement in relation to the estimates, and also he gave historical background into many of the fallacious statements that were made during the budget presentation as well. Denise and Maria, good night to both of you. Come on, folks, remember, like and share, like and share.
You remember in the Bible, God had a plan for Jonah to restore Nineveh. But who will restore Grenada? Is it the same Jonah?
Vaughn, good night, bro.
Up my mouth. And I ain't counting no chicken before the hatch. Politicians sometimes farm a crooked badge. After they get the vote, they now sing one note. But here comes Fort Judy and Nancy Payne with $1 million house and brand new car on the scene, while our hungry belly still grumbling.
So I'm interested. I know that nearly all of you were listening this morning. I'm pretty positive on that. We're listening this morning, and if you didn't get the opportunity to listen, we have got the presentation on the Talking Points page. You'll be able to go back there and listen later tonight, tomorrow, over the weekend while you're relaxing. You'll be able to listen to the presentation by Dr. the Right Honorable Keith Mitchell. Let me hear your views in relation to the presentation as well. Give me a call, 440-7377-349. No, I'm saying it wrong again. It's 347-329-3101. I had to make a glance there to make sure. So yeah, for those of you out there in New York, 347-329-3101.
By the way,
so you had Dr. Mitchell giving an historical background in relation to several aspects that lent to his discussion on the budget. And again, as I said yesterday, the army of idiots would be out today. Yeah, they couldn't come under the Talking Points page and our pages. They couldn't come there. So they stuck under the GIS page with all their negative comments and that sort of thing. So the army of idiots was out. But the thing is that none of them were able to say that what Dr. Mitchell was saying was untrue. None of them were able to counteract anything that he was saying. They just made the attacks, the personal attacks on him. Yeah, some of them actually racist attacks, from, imagine black people being racist to black people. Yeah.
This is not politics. Please don't forget. I'm just practicing to be a poet.
I think it seems that many of us as black people seem to not be comfortable in the skin we have. So we continue making statements about people being quote unquote, and it's not a term that I like to use, but I'll use it here as an example of some of the nonsense that they're saying. That people black and ugly, or people look like a monkey. But if they go in another country and a Caucasian person or an Asian person tells them that, then they want fight, they want war, they want all sort of thing. But they think it's okay to say that about another one of themselves, another Grenadian. Because a lot of us, all of the preach black conscious and all sort of thing, they ain't conscious at all, Yeah, because to make a statement like that means that you're self-hating. Means that you don't like yourself, you hate yourself. So I was looking at some of those hateful comments and that sort of thing. And I was seeing people commenting on some of the hateful comments that were being made. But it says to me that the people making that those comments are void. They don't have intellectual capacity. So they can't discuss the budgets in the way that Dr. the Right Honorable Keith Mitchell was able to discuss the budget. He was able to speak about the history of pensions, that you had the Provident Fund and so on that was there from the days of Eric Matthew Gary, and then the revolution coming in, and looking at the 1958 Act and saying, at the time of the revolution, remember, there was a lot of hiring into the public service. And you're not just speaking about the militia and the PRA and that sort of thing, but there was a lot of hiring and taking people into the public service. So it meant that the 1958 Act that would be okay for implementation if you just had a 300 or 400 people working with the government of Grenada, a teacher here, there, how much schools they had at that point in time, and then Most of them, you had one main teacher, and you might have had two teachers or whatever in the schools. When the revolution saw that they would end up in a situation in the future that when they had to pay pensions, if they continued with a non-contributory scheme, they would end up in a situation that they had no money to pay pensions. What they did is that they made sure that they put in place a pension scheme where people were paying money into it. Then they would take that money, reinvest it, and then when they get the outcome of that, they get the profits from that, they reinvest it again and keep reinvesting and building that money so that they're able to pay sick benefits. They're able to pay something if you lose an arm or a leg, or so they're able to pay something. They're able to pay death benefits. They're able to pay maternity benefits and paternity benefits and those sort of things. They're able to give loans to workers. All of those sort of things are things that the revolution looked at and said, well, okay, if we create the NIS, that's what we would be able to do. And therefore, they created a pension plan under the NIS, right? After that, you had the NIS coming into force in 1983. And then you have the various aspects of the pension discussion that took place. You had the government being taken to court under the former NDC administration. You had the government being taken to court on the pension issue. So to get the reinstatement of the 1958 Pension Act, you also had, prior to that, you had the NNP administration ensuring that they brought into place the Special Pensions Act so that even if somebody didn't qualify under the 1983 pension of the NIS pension, that this person could be afforded. Or if the person didn't even qualify for the 1958, but they gave a certain amount of years of service, that individual could still receive a pension. So it is not an easy thing that the young people there would be able to explain, because you have to understand, Dr. Mitchell needed to take the time and teach some history today. And the reason he had to teach some history, remember, you have at least 3 members there who were too young to know anything that he's talking about. They probably were not born, or they were born when the benefits of what he was speaking about were already starting to display. So you have at least 3 members there that are under the age of 40 that would know nothing about what he's speaking about. So he had to take the time, and especially as one of the people that was around with some of what he was speaking about, and also the person who implemented some of what he was speaking about. For instance, when he spoke about being the prime minister in charge of ICT for the region, because various accusations were made that the Ministry of ICT, all they were doing were fixing computers. That's absolute nonsense. Yeah? But when he was able to explain that it was him and Honorable Gregory Bowen that broke the back of the cable and wireless monopoly that they had in the Caribbean. They were the ones that went to the UK and fought cable and wireless here to break the monopoly so that you could have other entrants. I remember one of the first entrants, we had AT&T and Digicel were operating here in Grenada. Yeah, you had cable and wireless, you had AT&T, and you had Digicel. I think after a while, AT&T was bought over by Digicel, if I remember, and they continued operating. Now you have Flow, you have Digicel, you have Spice Mobile, and so on. Before, there was a monopoly. You couldn't have any other entrance into the market. And that was not just the case for Grenada. The reason that sometime in about 2010, 2011, Dr. Mitchell and Gregory Bowen were both honored by ECTEL, the regional telecommunications body who's in charge of telecoms for the entire region. The reason that these 2 gentlemen were honored, they flew them out of Grenada. We were in opposition at the time. They flew them out of Grenada and they honored both of them. Were that these were the 2 people that ensured that throughout the Caribbean, they started the ball rolling in Grenada. But that ball rolled over Trinidad, Barbados, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, St. Kitts, all the way up to Jamaica. Because there was one monopoly throughout the Caribbean in relation to telecoms. If you had to get internet, you had to go through cable and wireless. You needed a home phone, you had to go through cable and wireless. You needed a mobile device, you had to go through cable and wireless. Any sort of service that you needed like that, you needed to go through cable and wireless. And it was Dr. Mitchell and Gregory Bowen that broke the back of that in the Caribbean. Some of them that's sitting on the other side, making noise. They don't know that. They didn't know that Dr. Mitchell, and if they knew, probably they didn't want you to know if you didn't know. So it was important for him to go back historically, speak about the electrification of Grenada. The fact that as the minister at the point in time, even the area he was in didn't have electricity. That the first community to be electrified in Grenada, to have electricity run through there, after they did the various studies and so on, and they said was Munich. And that Munich, for years after the Festival of the Lights, as they used to call it, on the anniversary of when electricity was turned on in that area. The water projects that were done from one end of Grenada to the other to bring water into areas that there was never any water. Because people tend to want to talk like if you never did anything, you're just there, you just came in, you were a prime minister, you were a parliamentary representative, and you never did anything in all that time. And that is absolutely not true. Absolutely not true. So it was important for him to give an historical background in relation to these issues. There was one he left out this morning I could speak about. The Cuban president was here. I know that Dr. Mitchell, I believe, met with him this morning. Dr. Mitchell is the only living Grenadian that has the highest order, the highest award from the Cuban people. That is the Order of Jose Marti that was presented to him when he went and visited Cuba. And he visited Cuba at a point in time that every other Caribbean country was afraid to go into Cuba. They were afraid. In fact, one or two of them, they kind of edge him on and say, well, watch, use the man might have to go in. And he was the first leader to go. And he met with Fidel Castro. How do you say it? El Comandante en Jefe. He met with Fidel Castro and reopened that corridor between Cuba and the Caribbean. Because every country was afraid of how they engaged with Cuba after what happened in Grenada in 1983. So it was the best thing that could possibly happen for the rest of the countries that Grenada was the one that went and got into contact again with Cuba first, and everybody else were able to follow after. So then you saw Dominica going there, and you saw Barbados going, and you see all the other countries started going to Cuba, but it started with Grenada. And it's important because those who forget their history are doomed to repeat it. Always remember that. Those who forget their history are doomed to repeat it. You've had the many challenges that the new National Party as a government had to face. I was speaking to someone earlier today about Tropical Storm Lenny. And they were asking me, well, what is that? And a person who is just a little younger than me. And they were asking me about Tropical Storm Lenny. And I was telling them I stood up in town and look at, because that's what you call storm surge. I was in town during storm surge. I saw what it did to Pitch Pine Bar, where Pitch Pine Bar used to be. I stood up there and saw Pitch Pine Bar destroyed. Waves coming over NIS. The road in Fontenoy and so on, all those areas there. When you saw the road eat up. All those challenges that the new National Party had to go through and were able to bring Grenada to a particular point. Because when people come and say, you ain't do nothing, you have to be able to defend your record. But you had some people saying, well, why you going back there? Why is that he talking about? No. He has to defend his record. Because it seems as though some of them did not know. But they can't say they don't know now. They were told by the person that was involved and was there and involved in it, and in some instances was the person who guided the process. But they were giving the impression that nothing was done. Oh, nothing was done. Nothing was done because you were never involved. Even when some of the things mentioned were taking place, these individuals were not involved. They didn't care. So I listened to the presentation. And then when it came down to the facts and figures in the document, and some interesting points were made. Because when you add an environmental levy onto water, yes, it affects me and it affects you. So my water bill is going to be higher. Your water bill is going to be higher because you now have an environmental levy placed on it. But you know, one of the things that people didn't look at is that what about the people who are into production? So the farmers who have to use more and more water now, if they're not using the water, pumping the water from the river, those farmers are going to have to increase the price to cover the loss that they're going to be making for the additional money that they have to spend due to the environmental levy. Because they definitely will have to pay the environmental levy because they're using more water. They are going to be using more water than me and you ever use. What about the people who are in manufacturing, who are doing drinks and so on? Their cost of production has gone up. And that cost of production is going to be passed on to you, the consumer, and me, the consumer. So even when it comes to poultry production, and I know one member in the parliament, they know good about poultry production, but when it comes to the issue of poultry production and the use of water and electricity, because you've also had a situation where it seems as though they're giving you a little ease up in relation to the electricity, but it's not. You're actually going to be paying more. Because if you look at it with the policy of the NNP, if you're using 300 watts, the non-fuel charge would be $91.29. And we'll come back to that. Let's take this phone call. We've got a caller. Good night.
Good evening, Sheldon. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm great, man. Tired, but I'm good. Yeah, real tired.
I know I expect you to be. Today was a long session, eh?
Man, I've been up since 4 and I'm not getting to bed until nearly 12, eh?
I understand that. Now, first of all, like I said last evening, we're going to see vintage Keith Mitchell. And that is what we saw today. Secondly, again, like I said last night, it's time NDC supporters get out the campaigning and understand what is happening. They should encourage the members of parliament to make themselves aware of what the standard rules and proceedings are in the House of Parliament, in the House of Representatives. And it is amazing that opposition leader Keith Mitchell was showing disparities between the budget speech and the document of the estimates of revenue and expenditures. However, the NDC acolytes seems to have not taken any account of what he was saying. Maybe it's because they don't have the access to the estimates of revenue and expenditures, so they believe wholeheartedly in the budget document that was presented by Deacon Mitchell? Or is it that they're so, for the lack of a better word, brainwashed against Keith Mitchell that they're not going to even listen to how we are now starting our downward journey into hell in a handbasket? It is apparent and reminiscent of the revolution that when things were failing around the revolution, they decided it was time to step up on political education. That was what was happening. And they decided, since they were not getting everything they had to get from the Soviet Union at that time, and even Cuba and other socialist blocs, that to keep the people from focusing on the bad things that are going to happen, they should step up political education, enforce it in secondary schools and even primary schools, political education. So the NDC is taking a page from the revolution in that aspect, that they think that with all the rah against Keith Mitchell, the Grenadian people are going to not pay attention to what they are not doing in terms of how inadequate and inept they are in putting together the estimates of, you know what they should have done? Just call in Dr. Mitchell and say, well, this is your proposal from the last budget. We just want to add a little $2 and call it our own. Because basically that's what they're doing. But they're doing it so so bad that it is glaring. You know, the simple mistakes, mathematical mistakes they made, and then they have their acolytes rah-rahing all over social media about how bad Keith is and how much of a chief Keith is. And yet none of them could point to one thing that Keith steals up to this day. Again, I say the presentation by the leader of the opposition was, like I said, a history lesson, a lesson in mathematics, a lesson in the parliament, because they didn't even know what a standing at a point of order was. So, you know, we have our work cut out for us to bring back our people from this precipice of stupidity where they're about to take a giant leap. That's all I have to say tonight, children. Have a good evening.
All right, my brother. Thank you so very much. And folks, it goes back to some of the things we were saying last night in preparation for today, where you have individuals that seem to want to copy the style and actions of certain parts of the revolution. Yeah, they want to copy certain styles that of things that were taking part in the revolution. So once you're against, or you don't even have to be against, but you have to be perceived to be against. Back in the days of the revolution, you would be a counter. So you would get a free passage up to Richmond Hill Prison. The moment you said anything that was against the leaders or the leadership or the revolution or anything that was pro-American or so, yeah, and they didn't care who you were because they locked up their own attorney general, was up the hill for you. All right? And now you realize every time you say something that is considered to be not what they want you to say, they consider you to be against the transformational agenda. And if they could have, they would have been a situation up to Richmond Hill for you. So we have to be careful. And we have to see these things for what it is. That's why the history lesson is so important. That's why it's important to know your history. And it's important as well because, listen, you have situations like this. For instance, Dr. Mitchell was pointing out some inconsistencies because you had a speech being given on Monday. Now, understand something. I said it here before. I'll say it again. You have the speech. The speech is simply a synopsis of the estimates of revenue and expenditure. While the speech was 80 or so pages long, the estimates are over 400 pages long in some instances. Some it may be a little less, some it's a little more. But the estimates are around that, roughly about 400 pages long. So the speech basically gives snapshots of different parts of the estimates of revenue and expenditure. But the Prime Minister was quoting one figure, and when you check the estimates, in several areas you realize was a totally different figure that was there. One area that came to mind, and I know that Dr. Mitchell did speak about it, was the area of agriculture, where they had a figure of $54.3 million in the speech, yeah, which was supposed to be an increase of $14.3 million. But when you look at the estimates of revenue and expenditure, and I'm going to bring an old copy of one of them to show you how thick it is. When you go through the estimates of revenue and expenditure, the document that we're pretty sure that only 0.002% of the population will ever go through. You have to be an accounting student or something with a need, or you have to be a senior civil servant with a need to go through that. Generally, people don't go through that, so hardly anybody, and they know that. That's why when you look through the actual document, it says 39.4 million, and that's on page 468. On the Prime Minister's speech, on page 12, it says under agriculture, 54.3 million. on the estimates of revenue and expenditure on page 468. So this one, I did tell you it's a big document. The estimates there say $39.4 million, a big difference in relation to the amount of money that they claim, and they jump up and say it's $14.3 million more than the NNP gave you. But when you look the actual figure in the document, it is different to what they have been quoting. You also had a situation when they speak about the Ministry of Infrastructure here, $143.1 million. Yeah? But when you look at page 338 of the estimate, you realize it's $131 million. So again, a large gap, a little over $10 million gap difference in what was said by the Prime Minister when he was giving his speech and in his speech, and what is actually in the estimates. Because you don't run the country based on what's in the estimates, in the speech, you run it based on what's in the estimates. We have a call online. Good night. Hello? Hello? Okay, we lost that call. Caller, give us a call back. Yeah, okay, I think I got that caller now. Hello, good night. Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, pay attention to the phone line. Go right ahead.
How are you doing today?
Hey, I'm quite fine. You're live. Go right ahead.
Yes,
go ahead.
We could see clearly today the difference marginalized within the political and then the financial aspect of it. Yeah?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, we could see clearly. You could sit out and speak about politics, and when you actually get into it and you face the facts, you see what happens, and you see the experience of Dr. Mitchell. Politically, you could clearly outline it today, and the financial aspect of it, where you can just see the documents. Like, for example, if you are the Prime Minister, Sheldon Scott, you don't know nothing much about the finance, so somebody writes your finance aspect of it, and you read it, yeah? But when you read it, you have to fully understand it, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Mathematically. And we see the difference. We could see the clear difference in it. I hope somebody very carefully listened to what Doc had to say today and understood that part of it.
But you see, so it was... You remember that
just like...
No, but I was saying the budget speech, you realize that the difference there is because they wanted to be able to say, well, we're spending more than the NNP. They just wanted to be able to make that statement, we're spending more. But when you look at the actual estimates, totally different.
That is what I'm saying. You see, as Doc was making mention of all the time, like you could take words and make a lie of it, but you cannot take figures and make a lie of it, because figures is figures.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? Figures is figures. That is one is one. One can be two, and one can be a zero. Yeah,
mm-hmm.
That is where the differences come. Yeah,
and
I hope people really listen to this and take some serious note based on this, what has happened today. And we could have seen a lot of people was up there, and like all the eye was on Doc today. Take it or leave it.
Yeah. And even when you look at the budget document, and it has the you're looking at the actual estimates now, and they have $131 million. That's still $98 million less than the NNP spent on infrastructural projects, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a large disparity in the figures.
Yeah, but you see what happens is sometimes you just end up having a talk shop. Yeah, and that is what, but you must come with the real thing and just explain to the people, tell them the real bottom line, what it is all about. Yeah, just talking, as I said before, talking politics from outside is different than actually when you come in to manage the affairs of the nation. It is not a fish house where you go and tell Jackson and you make noise. Not like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you could stay outside and do that, but when you come to the actual part of it, it's completely different.
Yeah.
Yeah, completely different.
Of course. Yeah. All right, caller, thank you so very much.
All the best.
All right. 440-7377, and for those of you outside of Grenada, again 347-329-3101. Those are the numbers for you to call and get onto the inside. Yeah. So you're hearing the disparity in relation to the figures. The documents are there, so they can't say that what Dr. Mitchell is saying is untrue. The documents are there. Because if you make the speech and you say that you're spending A, but the document that is going to be used now by the technocrats to get that money for the ministry is saying something else, then we have to be very careful in relation to our expectations. We have a call online. Good evening.
Sheldon.
Yes, sir.
Hey, good night, good night.
Good night to you, man. I know you were locked in and listening today.
To you
Yes, of course.
attentively. And as the commissioner was saying, that a liar may go to court and try to lie to win a case for someone. You deal with numbers, you can't lie your numbers. Right? You can't lie your numbers. And that outline everything that what was said in the budget by the Prime Minister. Because like if what he and other people sit down to think the budget. When he started to present the budget, he was saying like even other budget that he was speaking about. Right? And see, when people are accustomed misleading people and trying to fool people, they will always continue to do it. But I always say, shall we always say, the truth will find you out. Right? Don't try to make something nice. And when you're dealing with a man like the committee at no numbers, and then he go to make it clear to the Ghanaian people what is exactly is in the budget. Because you try to dress up something nice and make it feel like your budget is so a wonderful budget, an excellent budget. I know the first day when the Prime Minister presented the budget, everybody was saying, "Oh, it's a wonderful budget, a good budget," right? Because you see, a man is eloquent, right? This is a man could be the most dangerous man. That the one who might speak and stammer, but he might stammer, but what he's saying is good, right? Eloquent speech, I would call it a proper delivery of a budget. A proper delivery of a budget is by speaking the truth. If you fall short, right, you fall short. Don't try to give something that is not in the budget. When you have people that know about budget, people that know about numbers, they will find it out. Right? As you always say, when you speak the truth, people go try to lambaste and criticize the person messenger. But remember, the people know what is the truth. And when you have a man like him, we explain to the Ghanaian people exactly what is going on. And he just spoke again about if this more on the poor class of people. And when you look at the budget, the money, poor people is one that getting the brunt of the problem. Because every cut that they made in the budget is to affect the poor class of people. The poor class of people. As I can say again, the heart is a symbol. And ask them, if the heart is a symbol, you should have a heart for the poor class of people. The poor class of people. As you were saying again with the sugar, the price of goods. Yes, you say sugar is something you cannot stop people from buying. You say he could able to buy the honey, but then what about the poor class of people? They won't able to buy it because a bottle of honey is about 47 or 50 something. When you calculate that by 100 pounds sugar, by 20 pounds sugar, 20 pounds of sugar, right? It's still less than what we're paying.
But let me ask this question as well. And Dr. Mitchell did ask that question today. You put that tax on the sugar, but what is the alternative that you're offering?
What is the alternative?
Because it's obvious, especially when you're speaking about children and so on. We could say as much as you want, don't give them sugar, don't give them sugar. Children gravitate towards sweets.
Sweeting.
You measure how much you give them, but they would want something sweet. If you're denying them the ability to have sugar and so on, what are you giving them? So how do we encourage people to get more honey and to have honey cheaper? Because you try to buy a bottle of honey right now and tell me how much you had to pay for it.
Our $50.
You understand? So how do we get the price of that down more? How do we encourage people to use alternatives, more healthy alternatives, and make it affordable for the average Grenadian to use? So you can't use sugar, you have to use honey. But honey is nearly $50 a bottle in some instances, and so on. That is the point. You don't just cut out something from somebody, you give them an alternative.
Let's take an example. Okay. You have a family of 6 persons, okay, in a home. Right. You want to buy, say like you may say, chicken wing is not healthy, right? Okay, let's say chicken wing is $10 at about at 10 at 2 pounds. And you may say turkey is about $15 for 2 pounds. I know definitely if you buy 2 pound chicken wings, you will share more. Why will happen? You will still end up buying the chicken wings. Okay, cheaper. And you could share. You will share more for the family. Right? So as we say, if you're trying to ask people to cut the amount of the intake of sugar, put up butter on sugar. What is the other mean? What else we could do? So you cannot try to pressure people one way. I don't give them other means. What to use?
Yeah.
Right? The more.
All right, caller.
Right,
Thank you very much. All right, and let me say a special good night. Yeah, you all may think I'm avoiding you on the YouTube tonight. Antonia and your wife Leah, all the way from Australia, who is tuned in. And so Antonio, Natalia, Mr. Watts, I see that you're in tonight. Baby Daddy, a special good night to you as well. Faithlin, good night. Kelvin, right, bro? What's up, man? I'm seeing you in. Gemma, I'm not sure I shouted you out for the night before. Ruth, good night to you. Yes, I'm seeing you there. Anne and Unison. So I'm seeing all of you in tonight. Just saying a special. And remember, subscribe and make sure you click the bell icon for the notifications and share. Because, you all are making a point there about the behavior in the house. And it was quite obvious that while Dr. Mitchell was speaking, he was being antagonized. At least they were trying to antagonize him, but it's Dr. Mitchell. They couldn't get through. From the other side, there were people making noise on the other side because they're trying to throw off his presentation because they did not want the facts that were coming out to come out. I mean, one man stand up on a point of order. He don't even know it's a point of order. He could ask me. I could explain a point of order to him. But he didn't even know what a point of order is. He called Section 38 of the standing orders. He didn't even understand what that is. When they're asking him, well, what is the point of order that you're standing upon? He couldn't say what the point of order is. And these are a bunch of people that actually had training over the past few months in parliamentary procedure and stuff. They didn't just walk into parliament. They've actually got training in relation to parliament and the operations of parliament and so on. Yeah? So that is what has been taking place. But back to Dr. Mitchell's presentation. So the placement now of the environmental levy back on the electricity and now on water is going to increase the price of production for local manufacturers. Yeah, especially those who are producing food. So the poultry farmers, the farmers themselves, it's going to increase their price of production because now they will have to pay environmental levy on the water, right? So that's how much more per gallon that they would have to pay. And then on top of that, they've got to pay more for electricity. And if you do the math, I won't go through it. In fact, I don't think I'll go through that tonight with you. But if you do the math, you'd realize that with the measures that the NDC have taken in relation to electricity per kilowatt hour, yeah, whether it's 300 kilowatt hours or 800, that the price that you will have to pay on a monthly basis will always be more by the NDC calculation than it is with the measures that were taken by the NNP. For 300 kilowatt hours, with the measures that the New National Party took, it would cost you roughly a little over $351 for 300 kilowatts. And that's a lot of usage. But under the NDC, for the same amount of usage, it's going to cost you 400 plus. Yeah? And that's just basic calculations in relation to that. So there's quite a lot because according to Dr. Mitchell too, you had that situation where it seems as though that the present Prime Minister and Minister of Finance is more interested in paying dividends to the shareholders of Grenlec than he is in providing relief to the people of Grenada. So he's more interested, instead of providing relief to you, the Grenadian people, of let's give up a $30 million so that the people of Grenada could receive relief, that you would have that little extra spending power. Instead of that, they're saying, no, bust bill on them. At least the people who own the company, even though the government of Grenada owns the company as well, at least for now, we know what we saw, a 6.3 under the budget speech in relation to disposal of assets, but at least for now, the people of Grenada own it, but the other shareholders. Because sometimes I see comments being made by individuals, certain individuals, and they are shareholders in Grenlec, and they would never like anything government do in relation to Grenlec. The last government, that is. Because they're only interested in getting their dividends. They don't care about the mother that can't pay the bill. They don't care about the family, the mother and father and so on, that light bill has been there for the past 2 months, and it's so high that they are unable to meet that obligation, and they run the risk of the embarrassment of having their electricity cut off. They don't care about that person. All they care about is receiving their dividends. So when you hear them speaking about, oh, we're going to protect the company and we're going to do this and we're going to do that, they don't even care about protecting the company. They care about pleasing and placating the shareholders and the potential purchasers of Grenlec. That's the main thing. That's why Dr. Mitchell had to go back into the history of Grenlec as well. And he had to speak about electrification, rural electrification, and the rural electrification program that he was in charge of as Minister of Works under the Blaise government. And the work that has been done after that in bringing electricity to many areas of Grenada that had none. And then the fallacy of not just selling the company, but how the company was sold back in 1994. Because if some of you see the share purchase agreement that there was between the government of Grenada and that company, and if some of you saw the law that was passed back in 1994 when Grenlec was sold, and the circumstances under which Grenlec was sold, that you sell a company and still give back that company how much $1 million on top of it. After you sell it for them, you still give them back how much million so that they could buy an engine or whatever. Those are the kind of things that took place. That if you had a piece of land, this was in law, this is what was in law by the NDC administration of 1990 to 1995. They put in law when they were selling Grenlec that if you, the normal Grenadian, had a piece of land and Grenlec wanted to put up solar panels, or there was water running through there and they wanted to build a dam or whatever, that the government could have taken your land, and then the government had to pay you for your land. They could take your land wherever it was. It didn't matter where. Government could seize your land, but they had to pass it on to Grenlec for free. So the company would say, we want that piece of land. The government of Grenada could seize your land. The people of Grenada had to pay for your land, but the company was getting that piece of land for free. That was in the law that they had, that was in existence between the NDC between 1990 and 1994 when they sold Grenlec. That was one of the things there. They also had a clause inside there, which was the clause they eventually used to get back the company. That if they found that any law was passed in Grenada that they believed, the law didn't have to be, but that they believed, so it was based on what they thought, that that law was not beneficial to them as a company, that the government of Grenada had to buy back the company. Not that you might want to, not you might consider, that you had to buy back the company. That was in the law. They had it in the law that you were not allowed to produce your own electricity. That was in the law in relation to Grenlec, the Grenada Electricity Act from 1994. They had in that law that you could not produce. In fact, using a generator technically was illegal. Grenlec could have taken it to court and they would win. That people who were putting up solar panels had to sell all their electricity back to Grenlec. That was in the law. And all of these things is what we had to change when we went and we redid that Electricity Act. And then Grenlec, the company that owned Grenlec at the time, WRB, decide, well, this thing ain't making sense for us, because what we could have do before, and the fact that we alone could have produced electricity, now somebody else could come and produce and give lower prices to the people of Grenada. Now, we don't want that. We want the monopoly on it. So they decided to get out of Grenada. And they invoked the clause that was there. But they're trying to make it look like the government of Grenada did something wrong. It was to protect you. And now you have the same lawyer who represented WRB in charge of your country. and with, it seems, full intention to dispose of Grand Lake. To whom, I don't know, but with full intention of disposing of Grand Lake. So let me just check the chat here. Yes, so you have Cynthia. Good night to you, yeah. And right. So I'm seeing some. Are you there? Let me see over on this side. Right, yeah. I think I have to run the I have to update this side here because some of the information is information that I saw already. All right, yeah. But what I'm saying is that if you don't know the history behind it, you will be easily misled. I listened to one MP speaking today about they're going to eradicate poverty. Brother, read your Bible, Matthew 26:11. Read your Bible. Somebody read it for him. Tell him that figure. Matthew 26:11. The poor will always be with you. That's the Bible, unless you don't believe in the Bible. But the poor will always be with you. You'll always have poor people in countries. America, one of the richest countries on earth, if not the richest, they have poor people living there. Qatar, the Middle East, all these countries. Billions, probably trillions of dollars. And they still have poor people living in their country. They still have areas that you have poorer people living. So this pipe dream are coming and say that, oh, we're going to eradicate poverty. In which country has ever eradicated poverty? Which country has even come close to eradicating poverty? One of the richest countries on earth, Norway, and these countries there, they still have poor people living there. You can make a valiant effort to, one, raise the standard of living a significant portion of the people, as much of the people who are poor as possible. You could do that. You can also implement programs to assist the poor people who are suffering. But come with this kind of thing about, we're going to get rid of... Come on, man. If you're talking, talk sense to people and read your Bible too, yeah? Yeah, read your Bible too. Folks, let me take a short break while I take, my water break.
One public service. Everybody will be made permanent. Nobody going home. Take Susu in you. I don't believe in superstition. Something wrong with that transformation. From the 10 boys drink the water. Strange thing happening in
440737, as I said, I'm tired tonight. 440737. And those of you overseas, 347-329-3101. Yeah, you could tell I'm tired. And again, another point that Dr. Mitchell made was that they attached to the end of the budget document, there's a list there of the zero-rated items. The same zero-rated items I've been speaking about for the couple nights that does not include the agricultural stuff that I've been talking about. And they're giving the impression to people that they zero-rated all these items. Some of these items are items that were zero-rated by the New National Party last year. In last year's budget presentation, some of these items were zero-rated. And some of these items were zero-rated as far back as between the 2008 and 2013 NDC administration. So you had some items that were zero-rated because remember, VAT was implemented by the then NDC administration. I think it was in about 2010. Yeah, I think about 2010, you had the VAT was placed placed on items and so on. And from since then, after people ball out in relation to certain things, you had some items that were zero-rated under the NDC then. Then when the NNP came in, they zero-rated some other items up to late last year, early this year, zero-rating some more items. So when you look at the list of items there, it's not a new thing. Yeah, there are one or two items that are on it now. And while you add a tax on something like, for instance, you add a tax on sugar, you have zero-rated all types of oil, which are just as unhealthy. If you're talking about health being the reason, and you're putting a vice tax, as they call it, a vice tax. A vice tax is on something that isn't absolutely necessary for human survival, but is more of a luxury, as some people see it. So they put vice tax on things like if you're going and buy very expensive vehicles like those, a Lamborghini or some kind of thing. They put you put a especially high tax on that. You call it a vice tax. Or on vices like drinking, alcohol and cigarettes and those sort of things. You put vice taxes on those kind of things. or on things like caviar and those kind of expensive foods and those kind of things like that, you put a vice tax on that. But you put a vice tax on sugar and you take it out on things like oil and so, and any doctor will tell you it's oil that clogging up people's artery, giving them heart attack and so on right now. It's oil that they keep telling you stop eating the fried foods and those kind of things. Yeah? But yet still, you're talking about health, but you're zero rating some of the most unhealthy stuff. Yeah?
Same lady what mess up Jelly, no. Mess up Dennis in conference also. Now she's a big minister. I want to say glory, hallelujah. To sing that song, you really brave. Dennis must be thrown in the grave. Holy old man take all the money and send him straight to the cemetery. Who tell them drink the water? The transformation water. From the time they drink the water, like they put a spell on Grenada. They ram to drink the water. The transformation water. From the time they drink the water, they start to reverse Grenada.
And then you look at what the New National Party was able to do last year. They were able to remove VAT on the first 500 kilowatts of electricity consumed by households, right? Remove the environmental levy on the first 500 kilowatts of electricity used overall, reduce the non-fuel surcharge by 25%, and all of that has been reversed by this NDC administration. And then when people cry out about the electricity bill and so on right now, you have them saying that, okay, they reinstall the 7.5% VAT, the environmental levy, and they remove the 25% discount, and they expect the bill to go down. No, something had to be wrong with them. They're Matsin. 4407377 347-329-3101. Let me say a special good night to all of you that I met up there today. I met several people up there today. All you must behave in the house, yeah? All you must listen to Mr. Speaker. But other people must listen to Mr. Speaker too. So it can't be on Monday, people clapping and making noise and them kind of thing. And then on Thursday, all of a sudden, the rule change within 72 hours. No. You have to be fair. So if they can't make noise on Monday, then they can't make on Thursday. But if they could make on Monday, then it would be biased to tell those who are doing that on Thursday that they can't do it, innit?
The whole government photogenic. If they go to the bathroom to pee, posting it up for the world to see. Taking out pictures like circus clown, on the balloon, boots on the ground. Who tell them drink the water?
Also had a wonderful presentation by Honorable Delma Thomas.
Drink the water.
As usual, spoke from the heart.
They ram to drink the water. The transformation water. From the time they
I really enjoyed the presentation by Dr. Clarice Modest Cohen as well. And her presentation exposed a lot of what people trying to take credit for. So she spoke about the various airlines that the government of Grenada, the NDC government, they are claiming that they are the ones that brought these airlines to Grenada. Yeah? When it was the NNP administration that had made the arrangements and did all the negotiation. So basically, by the time that the NDC came in, these were already scheduled, flights that were scheduled to return to Grenada. Some of them are actually flights that were traveling into Grenada before and were discontinued due to COVID-19. Because for the past 2 and some years, you've had this situation where there was less traveling taking place, and as such, you're not going to come flying down to Grenada during COVID time with additional flights and so on, when you had COVID running rampant and nobody didn't really want to travel. So you have the situation that was discontinued, and now, due to everything calming down a bit in relation to the COVID situation, you have a return of these flights coming back into Grenada. But now that the flights are coming back and they're announcing they're coming, you have people, because they never paid attention before, doing like if it's something new. Dr. Modest had to sit there and explain to the member of Parliament for Carriacou and Petit Martinique that she was the one that signed the agreement with SVG Air for the 19-seater between Grenada and Carriacou. Because it seemed as though the individual didn't even know that. I believe they know, they just lie. You know, they want to get the impression it was them. But as she was the one that signed the agreement. Because they keep talking about implementation. And we have to remember that in 2020, you had a thing called COVID-19. In 2001, you still had a thing called COVID-19. In 2022, it eased up, but you still have a thing called COVID-19. And it did affect the amount of money that was coming into Grenada. It did affect the projects that were being done in Grenada. Come on, if you have a project that's supposed to roll out one phase in 2019, a next phase in 2020, another phase in 2022. So let's say you're building something. So in 2019, you have the drawings and you have the groundwork done. In 2020, you start the construction, you start to move on, and the construction is due to finish in 2021. You start the first phase, but then in 2020, you had to shut down everything because people couldn't even go. Remember, construction workers couldn't even go on sites for a while. And they were even limited. And then you had to put in place different things to protect the workers when they went out on the job sites. Right? Some of the business places couldn't open. You had to have special days for hardware. I mean, I'm telling you all this because it seems as though we already forget that just a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, this was the reality of where we were at. Yeah? Remember when we thought we were going to have a Christmas? And all of a sudden we ended up with Christmas Day and all. I think we ended up having lockdown. When we thought we'd have a new year in 2020 and you ended up with lockdown all then. But it seems as though some people forget. Or they're trying to bamboozle you because they believe that you never used to pay attention. So they come speaking about, oh, lack of implementation, lack of implementation. Well, let me see all you implement. Yeah? Let me see all you implement, even without the COVID lockdowns and all this kind of thing. Let's see you all implement. Let's see what you all are able to do. So 4407-377 347-329-3101.
Every time I put on my TV, see me minister of MIT. My jungle says small and no panic. The whole government.
It's now 2 minutes after the hour of 9 o'clock. Yeah, we're finishing at 10 tonight.
Taking out pictures like circus clown. Only balling, boots on the ground. Who tell them drink the water? The transformation water. From the time they drink the water, like they put a spell on Grenada. They ram to drink the water. The transformation water. From the time they drink the water, they start to reverse Grenada. They say that fella never sleep here. Drink the water.
Yeah, give me a call, Antonio. Let me hear you all in relation to the presentation made by Leader of His Majesty's Opposition. Michelle, good night to you. Stephanie, good night to you as well. And remember, folks, we also have the Senate sitting coming up. I'm not too sure on the date yet, but we will have the Senate sitting coming up. I'm not sure if they're going to go for 2 or 3 days, but there is the sitting of the Senate coming up. We have a caller online. Good night.
Hi, good night.
Hi, good night.
Yes.
I'm
calling from overseas.
Yeah, no problem. Go right ahead.
I had a chance to look at the debate today, and what really surprised me is the behavior from the speaker when Ron Redhead stood up and tried to call Dr. Mitchell, said what he was saying was lies and whatever it is, and I could have seen the level of biasness in the deliberation by the speaker, and he's not ready yet. He's not. He's just as inexperienced, just as his friends. We know definitely that he probably was very much afraid of losing his job, so he's trying to put up a front. But we want to let him know that this is Grenada.
But afraid of losing the job, but the job is to be an impartial arbitrator at the parliament sitting. So if he loses his job for being impartial, something would be wrong. So he's afraid to lose the job and trying to be biased, then something is definitely wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, and we know definitely where that is coming from. We see those that's how that administration behaves, and the supporters behave in a kind of way like they're trying to give other people the impression that wrong must be condoned. And if they're behaving in such a way, it tells you how serious things are in terms of the whole as one man used the word decadence. What's taking place is just a total deterioration of values. We are seeing that happening, and some of their supporters want to be on the pages commenting and saying so much of derogatory things about the NMP, and they could only fool who wants to be fooled. And you allow people to treat you how you want to be treated. And I want to tell the supporters of the New National Party to remain focused, stand firm, stand very firm on this. This is something that they should not back down on. Stand up, hold their head up high, and stand for something. It's either you stand for something or you stand for nothing whatsoever it is. But this is not the time to retreat. This is the time that we're rebuilding. This is the time that we are reunited and recuperating as a unit. And with that, unity is strength. And let's come together and show them Grenada does not belong to the other side. I don't even want to call it in, because for me there does not exist a set of jokers in the eyes of the population, in the eyes of the world, because their behavior is so sinister. It makes you have to sometimes laugh at the behavior and sickening. I am not going to condone that, and I want to tell them, as somebody who with value, do not condone their behavior. It is very sickening, and Grenada belongs to all of us. Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique, whether from any of the islands,
Yes.
And NMP will be back. We'll be back, and we'll be back with a force.
That's what
we know how to run country, and we'll show them how to run country. And the debate today should have showed them definitely that they're persons of value, they're persons who know what they're saying. This MPs as Delma Thomas and even they gave a very good account of themselves, and they should tell the nation that these are not just persons for show. That just suit up or just run for politics' sake. They run because they have something. They have a love and a passion for people and for the country. Yeah.
All right, caller. Thank you so very much.
Continue doing a great job. And God bless.
Thank you very much. 440-7377, and if you're outside of Grenada, like the last caller, 347-329-3101. Let me say a special good night to those of you over the pond out there in the UK. I hope that you all are having a wonderful night tonight. Well, I think it's nearly morning time there already. Yeah, a wonderful morning this morning. And for those of you in other parts of Europe and so on, and those of you out there in Africa, we do have some listeners who tune in religiously from Africa. I have a feeling I know who at least two of them are that tune in from Africa. So I believe I know who one is. And I think I know the next one is, but I'm not sure who the others are that are tuning in from Africa. Good night. Hello, you're live, caller. Go right ahead. Caller, you're live. Go right ahead. Okay, yes, folks, when you're calling, remember to pay attention to the phone line and not to the because I was hearing in the background that I could have heard the program playing. So remember, when you call, you're not listening to hear me answer on that, because I'm doing the program via the internet. So there is a delay between what I say here and when you hear it. According to how you've structured your system, it could be as much as 30 seconds after I say it that you're hearing what I've said. So you need to speak to me when you call. Speak to me directly on the phone line and we can have a conversation, all right? So 440-7377, 347-329-3101. And the caller prior was making a point there, and I think it's important for me to continue to make that point to you all, that supporters of the New National Party make sure that you are ready. You're seeing what's happening with them. Remember, when you start hearing them talking about everything okay over here, with that political organization, usually it's a different story, is the reality, eh? So we have to make sure that we're ready at all times. Good night. Hello, good night.
Good night, sir. How you do?
Hey, I'm quite fine. You're live.
How you doing, man?
That song has Tonio.
Antonito, not Antonio. How you doing?
Boy, watch Antonio, Antonito, watch me and Chris, you have.
Yeah, man.
Papa, how it go?
I listen, I get angry. I tell my lady, I say, what, that man look at the phone because she watch it online. We watch it on the thing here.
Mm-hmm.
And so I try to like, it's delayed. She can't see it, but she wave it there.
Why is delayed, yeah? So your views on today?
I ain't feel too pleased with it.
Mm-hmm.
The boss wasn't firing on all cylinders.
Why you find he wasn't firing on all cylinders?
Hey.
No, why do you think he was not firing on all cylinders? I think he was.
Well, I think he was giving younger Mitchell a little chance. I mean, I agree. There are some things that he need to give him a chance with, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what I heard and I saw is when the Speaker of the House cut Dr. Mitchell and tell Dr. Mitchell, oh, well, tell people to stop clapping or something like that.
No, he what he was doing is the audience that was there were clapping on certain points that Dr. Mitchell was making. So he told Dr. Mitchell to hold, and he was speaking to them. Now, what happens is that within the House of Parliament, while he does have the ability to do that, it is up to the sergeant at arms to go through and tell the people who are in the crowd, please, too much noise, or please, order, 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 as happens in some houses in the Westminster system. Yeah. They would come through and they'd say, order, order, order. All right, so the sergeant of arms has that responsibility. The presiding officer, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, or in the other place, the Senate, the President of the Senate, and so they can also make that request and so. But if you allowed it just a few days ago, then why is it suddenly a problem now?
Yeah, but you see, no, I agree with Doc. Doc had a valid point, but Doc said us calm down.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody, but you should have calm down. You should have calm down. You know why? Because they were there and they listening, and I watching them, and they were there and they get angry. But I want to talk about Mr. Cornwall delivering this afternoon. The loudest man in the Parliament this afternoon. What do you think about that?
Well, I'll tell you this. There are certain rules that guide what was taking place there. I think people need to make themselves aware of what the rules are. And so I think that the presentation, well, not I think, I know that the presentation by Dr. Mitchell was an excellent one. I'll tell you why I believe it was an excellent one, and he was firing on all cylinders.
Yes, he was firing on all cylinders.
He gave the history, and then he came down to the figures, and he was able to speak to the budget and say, well, look, the disparities here, or you've done this, and while you may think that that is a good thing that you have done, this is the reality of what the outcome of that would be, and all of that is based on experience. The other thing is, he did not allow himself to be too distracted by what was taking place on the other side, because I don't know if you realize at a point in time, different members on the other side were disappearing and going outside like they're going to talk. And I believe that what was taking place, they were deciding how they're going to derail his presentation. And he did not allow his presentation to be derailed. He's been in Parliament too long for that.
So he's a real parliamentarian.
Yeah.
He's good. He's good.
Yeah.
And I like that. I want to see them come back and do that again next week. I'm saying Mr. Dika Mitchell, Prime Minister. I want to see Mr. Asia Thomas. I want to see, especially Claudette. I want to see Claudette.
Yeah, but that's when the Senate is coming up. You'll be seeing those individuals in the Senate. I think that may be ending next week or week after.
You
I
were
think the
there
Senate.
already, and I know I saw you there, but you was calm and collective in it.
No, but that's just me by nature most of the times. I would interfere with then Senator Burke, and
But Sheila, here
we'd
we
go back and forth in and between. But I mean,
Here we go. I like the budget. I love what it entails. We need to go going forward, but we need to just get it nicely and just implement it.
okay,
There's no problem with that.
okay, my brother.
Mr. Mitchell, because Mitchell is doing, he's doing well. He's doing well, and I agree. The man is doing well, and his team is good. His team is good. So I don't want to say that, oh, I'm an MP and you're an MP and we hate everything that they're doing.
I personally
love
believe,
what they're doing.
I certainly believe some members of his team are incompetent and failures. That's just me personally. Maybe they can prove me wrong in the future, but for now I consider them, some members of his team, I consider them to be incompetent. That's just me. No, because I mean, you can't tell me you get a ministry.
Program, right?
Yeah, no problem, my brother.
Good. Later on.
Yeah.
Have a good night.
All right. I'm saying you can't tell me you get a ministry, a super ministry that had, let's say, 30-something or 40-something million. You reduce the amount of money, trying to explain to me that you're going to keep the same amount of people within the program. Yeah? When your election promise to those people were permanent employment. Let's say it again. Their promise to the Imanis was that they would not be sent home and they would be given permanent employment. But something had to be wrong if you reduce the amount of money that you have for the program. It either means you're reducing the amount of money that each Imani is going to get, or you're reducing the amount of Imanis. It's one or the other. It's simple logic. As Dr. Mitchell said, the words may lie, but the figures don't. You can't lie with figures. Yeah? So you can't say that you reduced by nearly 11%, 11 million or whatever the amount of money that was there, and that you're going to keep the same amount of people in the program. Be honest and tell the people some of them have to go home. And then trying to make it look now like you was this big superstar that came in and break up a sort of corruption was taking place there. If it had corruption inside there, there is the office of the DPP. Present the files to him. Present the files to the DPP if there was corruption taking place in the ministry that he was in charge of, and shut up. That's what you had to do. But you know what? You wouldn't hear them presenting any files, because it is always better for them to not have a case going so that they could always talk and yap in relation to certain things. So you see them coming, I listen to the presentation, and I believe that Honorable Ron Redhead is incompetent. I make no apologies for that. The guy is incompetent. You talk about the situation with the playing fields in St. John and so on. Explain to the Grenadian people if the present contractor for the playing field in St. John has a contract. And if they do have a contract, when that contract was signed. Then we could talk about who wicked and who this and who that and who corrupt and all sort of things. Explain to the Grenadian people. Explain that to the Grenadian people. Yeah? Explain to the Grenadian people how you intend to provide opportunities for the same amount of people with about $10 million less. Explain to the Grenadian people that there was already a transition strategy in the Imani program from since my days back in 2013. We had a transition strategy. And that from since 2013 to now, you have had people entering the program and going on into permanent employment and so on. That was not a situation that you brought in a set of people in 2013 and they have never left the program. All the people that you're bringing in 2013, that they're still there today and that nobody was getting permanent employment. Explain to people that before you came in, there were 200 to 300 people that got permanent employment through the Imani program for this year. For this year, talk about 5. We're talking about how much 100. And that every few months you had. And my problem has always been that I believe that we did not do a good enough job of taking that information and putting it out to the general public that, look, these people were Imani trainees and now they're permanently employed. So it is easy for anybody to come now and say that, oh, you all just had a program running and there was nobody getting permanent employment. That is untrue. In the financial sector, in credit unions, there are people in management positions right now that will tell you they got the job through the Imani program that the new National Party had in place. There are people that are working there in lower ranking positions but permanently employed in credit unions that got that opportunity. They got their foot in the door through the Imani program. There are people that got the opportunity to work in banks through the Imani program, insurance companies through the Imani program, permanently employed. And then they come and they make a statement like, oh, how you expect a mother with 3 children to survive on $1,200? But Honorable Ron Redhead, you and your cohorts, while the NNP was given a 12, your intention is to give her none. Because as far as you all are concerned, these people spend too long in the program, time to go home. So rather than say, well, we'll continue to find opportunities for these persons to earn a living, your intention, and you have stated it clearly through the figures that you've put forward, that many of these people will go home. No if, what, or but about it. When we're having this conversation this time next year, it's going to be a totally different case. Because then you'll be trying to defend having sent those young people home. Because watch, we remember there's an advisor in that ministry. I wonder if people could remember what the advisor had said under the last NDC.
I want to say to you how much I cherish this moment to be here with you this morning. For me, it is a wonderful opportunity and a pleasant occasion. I want to say to you that I admire all of you. To me, you are all my children. And as you all know, every parent wants good for his child. So to you, I want good for all of you. Please be assured. Please be assured. Please be assured. Please be assured that my government will not send anyone home despite rumors of the contrary.
So you see, we've heard that promise before, you know. We've heard it before.
Please be assured that my government, the government of the National Democratic Congress, will not send anyone home despite of rumors to the contrary.
And you all know who's speaking there. Somebody was all a principal and all a sports teacher and that kind of thing. And the minister. And we know what happened by the ending of that year to the trainees that were under the Imani program. After that promise was made to them. We know what took place with those. And that is one of the people who has been the transformational leads in that ministry. So guiding the direction that the ministry has to go. That's one of the people that's, I don't know if they're still an advisor. They're probably still an advisor to the ministry. Yeah? So don't think, ask those people who was in the Imani program prior to 2008. Yes, Samuel John, good night to you. Ask people who were under the Imani program before. Because it seems as though some people memory kind of slow in relation to this. Mathematically, it's impossible to continue with the amount of people that you have in the program right now. Mathematically, it's impossible. Then, there is not a significant enough increase in relation to the allocations under any other department in the ministry or any other ministry that shows that you're going to absorb these people who were in the Imani in a ministry somewhere or under some program somewhere. Because there's not a significant enough increase there. While you put aside 40-something million for the creative industry, you're not going to absorb all the young people that are leaving the Imani into the creative industry, are you? You're not going to include them. You're not going to take them in under the Ministry of Legal Affairs and make them clerks or some kind of thing. There's not enough increase anywhere that you could say, well, okay, they've taken out this 10 million under the Imani or 11 million under the Imani. They've taken it out here, but they've dispersed it to these different ministries that are going to absorb these people that were in the Imani in a permanent capacity because you can't send them on contract. You said it's illegal. You said it's illegal to keep people on contract and so for this period of time. So it can't be a situation you're sending them on contract. It has to be permanent employment. Right? So you have to be absorbing all these people somewhere. And then they're telling the businesses that they've been dishonest and therefore they should be taking on the people and so. They've been saying that to a lot of the people who've been working in the program that, no, you're going to have to come out of there. If they don't want to hire you, you're going to have to come out of there. But they haven't told these people that if we pull you out of there, we are going to pay you your full stipend where the business was paying half and we were paying half. We're going to pay you a full stipend and we're going to find somewhere else for you or so. So what are these people supposed to do? Sit down home? Remember, we're talking about the same mother with 3 children who was working for the 1,200 they were talking about. So while I was getting 1,200 under NNP, they might end up getting nothing, transitioned into nothing under an NDC administration. And that's the reality. Yeah? In fact, let me play a zingo for them with this one. Let me play a zingo for them for this one.
So much people complaining about the government. I wonder why they're complaining when it's only 1 year they spent. They come in and complain to me, which I find strange, because the election victory, majority voted for change. So then I start to wonder, what is so much...
So when they start up talking about lie,
when they know my call,
they're self-identifying. I believe the individual is incompetent. That's my personal belief. I don't say you have to take my belief. I'm stating my belief that they're incompetent. Just like the member of Parliament for Carriacou and Petit Martin, incompetent. Yap. Stand up on point of order. You don't even know it's a point of order where you stand up. They say a certain person who wanted to be MP for St. David who pass you a piece of paper and tell you stand up on a point of order. Don't let him say that.
You was in opposition, you won with your propaganda. I really thought you had a plan. You appeal to them old people, push promise in the head. If they only vote for you, pension will be 400. So much seniors they turn out.
Remember, it was the present Prime Minister who said that contract work is illegal. Yeah? And then they come talking about the Imanis about they're going to send them to do training under the National Training Agency. Hello, the Imanis who are there are already training under the National Training Agency. If you want to extend the training, you want to provide more training, that's one thing. But they've got CVQ, that's Caribbean Vocational Qualification, for those of you that don't know what the CVQ means. Caribbean Vocational Qualification. So, for instance, if you're getting your qualification in bartending, there are certain criteria under the CVQ that you have to meet by the National Training Agency. And once you meet those criteria, in other words, you've spent X amount of hours mixing drinks. You have spent a certain amount of hours in a classroom learning a different aspect of bar mixology and that sort of thing. So there are different criteria according to the area. Whether it's fixing an automobile, fixing vehicles and so on, there are NTA qualifications for that. In fact, the same people that the NDC is now going to use to do the training under the NTA were qualified to do the training by the NTA under the new National Party administration. So it is nothing new to come and say, well, okay, well, now we had the NTA. The NTA has been there. It's even been there under the last NDC. So the NTA has been there. So they're doing the NVQ, the National Vocational Qualification, and they're doing the CVQ, the Caribbean Vocational Qualification. One is a local qualification, one is a regional qualification that they would be able to take and use in different islands. That's what the people under the Imani program, they are doing their CVQs, level 1, level 2, level 3. Some of them have completed 3 levels and so on. So they're doing their different qualifications under the CVQ. And so they're already doing training under the National Training Agency. But also remember what the incompetent minister was saying as well. He was saying that how the Imani program would be moved from the Ministry of Youth onto the NTA. All of a sudden you're hearing nothing about that again. Yeah? Remember he said that? He said the Imani program would be moved from the Ministry of Youth. and placed under the National Training Agency. So this is me looking under the National Training Agency documents now to see where the money that was under Imani gone to under them and how much more money they're receiving and that sort of thing. And I'm still looking. I'm still looking. Same way I'm looking for the salary of the press secretary and the prime minister's attaché or executive secretary or whatever they call the waste of time, waste of money position. I'm still looking for it. I'm still looking for the amount of money that's being paid for the rental property that the prime minister is now utilizing when you have the prime minister's residence sitting empty. And this was the person that stood up in front of you all on Monday and spoke about government paying too much rental around the country. But they seem to forget that they're living in a rental that they did not need to live in. But you have to pay for it on a monthly basis. They like to talk about who had to pay for what. You have to pay for it on a monthly basis. So while they may not have taken as Prime Minister an additional $2,000 and say, well, the state provides them with vehicles and all of that, so they didn't take any additional money onto their salary in relation to the traveling that they gave to the other ministers who are receiving $24,000 additional a year, each of them. So Tevin, Ron, Karine, they like to put the three of them together, yeah. They're receiving $24,000 additional a year per person, right? And Mr. Cornwall and Mr. Andrews and the other Mr. Andrews, yeah, and Mr. Persuader Thomas and Miss Claudette Joseph, all of them are receiving their $24,000 additional a year, while police officers ain't getting squat. Can't even get an upgrade, yeah? But while that is taking place, while the Prime Minister didn't take that, from all indications, the property that he's renting, that is being, not he is renting, but that the state is renting on his behalf, I've heard the figure, the same amount that they're taking on a yearly basis, being paid on a monthly basis for this property that the Prime Minister is now utilizing. Right? And meanwhile, the Prime Minister's residence that you are also paying for. You're paying for the upkeep of the Prime Minister's residence right now in Mount Royal, in St. George. You are paying for that as well. So you're paying for the upkeep of 2 residences for 1 Prime Minister. And he's the same one that came out and talked about government renting too much properties all around. That's the same person that was telling you that, you know. But they ain't telling you that part. What they need to come out is come out and say how much. Okay, so maybe we're wrong. Maybe it's a situation that somebody give you the property and it's just living there. But are the utilities and so paid for by the state at that facility then? And still paying for the facilities, the internet and the water and the electricity and so on, and the upkeep of the yard and everything at Mount Royal, and still paying for that at a second facility for 1 person. Monies that could have gone into fixing a school. Monies that could have gone to the same police officers. The same police officers that have to protect him and all of us. Who, while other people got their much deserved, and I believe that they deserve more, they, police officers, ain't get nothing. Nothing. Yeah? Up to now, nothing. Maybe if we talk enough, they might come back tomorrow and say, well, we go give them a look at something. We make a look at shift under the budget, we go give them a little something too. But remember, these are the people that talk about, oh, government renting here and government renting there. But they add to it. They didn't take out from it, they add to it. Yeah? So we have to listen carefully, as I always tell you all. Sometimes it's not what's said as much as what is not said. All right? Yeah, let me play a song for the police officers in the country.
But certain things that I see going on, yeah, man, we should close down our devastation from the nation. Why? Cause all you fretting me. We walk good about you, don't give a fuck. Administration is writing we back. All you fretting me. You hear me? Most of us do the pre-promotion course. Now you drop seal and busting we. All you fretting me. Don't fret me, 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 don't fret me. I said don't fret me, don't fret me. All your friends.
Yeah, some police officers say play that one for them.
Right up the reader. Every police walking around the clock to get all the black and video back. When we hold the culprit behind the fence.
Folks, remember the phone lines are open at 440-7377, 347-329-3101. We have roughly about 25 minutes remaining on tonight's program.
You don't give up, but some of all you just attacking me. All you fretting me. We seeking for betterment in this place, but all you stabbing us in with chest. All your friends.
You know, another thing I was looking at, they've combined some ministries. So, whereas the New National Party may have had, like, for instance, I'm just using examples here, Ministry of Youth and Sport, Youth, Sport and Culture. They would add a two more with it and then say, look, we put more money in this ministry than they ever had before when it's combining other ministries. Yeah? So they're playing fancy with the figures and giving you the impression that they're doing so much and so on. And that's why I said, if it's the first time you're paying attention to a budget, you might be amazed. Wow, what a budget. You ain't see thing in that budget for us. And Grenada going to be transformed because you ain't see but budget is basically a wish list of what you want to do. For instance, this administration is saying part of the way that they're going to fund this budget is that they're going to raise money through the CBI program. In other words, they're going to sell more Grenadian citizenships to more people from various places, and we know they've reopened to Russia and Ukraine and so on, that they're going to sell more Grenadian citizenships under the CBI program, right? And they're saying that they intend to make somewhere around $250 million out of that. 240 or 250 million EC dollars that they intend to make out of the CBI program. That's what they're looking at to try and help fund all of the things that they've been speaking about. But the reality of the situation, and you don't have to take my word for it, you can Google the CBI programs and so on, attempts to close the CBI programs. There are lots of stuff on YouTube, some of them by some of the very agents overseas for CBI programs, telling you that it's highly unlikely that you're going to be seeing a major increase in the amount of money that countries are making from CBI. Yeah? In the short term, maybe, especially for a country that has opened up to Russia, you would see a lot of people rushing in for CBI because they want to get out of Russia. They want to get out of having to go and fight in a war. So they're going to try, if they have that worth, they have that amount of money, they're going to try to buy their way out of that. So they're going to try to get through the CBI program into Grenada to become a Grenadian citizen, right? But in Europe, they're trying to shut down CBI. In the US, in Canada, in the UK, they're trying to shut down CBI programs that exist in the Caribbean region and other places by taking away some of the benefits that a Grenadian passport gives you. Now, for instance, in case you didn't know, Grenadians usually have what you call a Schengen visa. It means that a Grenadian citizen would not need a visa to travel through countries in the European Union. You can go to France. I don't think you need a visa to go to France unless you're staying over a certain amount of time. So there's a caveat to that. If you're staying over a certain amount of time, you need to get a visa. But if you're staying only for a short stay or you're just passing through, the Schengen visa allows you to go to there and Germany and various other countries. We have a caller online. Good night.
Yeah, Mr. Scott, how are things, man?
I'm good as usual, man. How are you doing?
Yeah, man, yeah, about 2 weeks now listening to you while you call it, I take it on YouTube.
Oh, okay, no props.
I can get on radio and things, so
Yeah, we're not on radio the exception at 89.5 right now.
Well, I don't know the MIT ministry, what different it make to the other ministry, and because I don't know why they extend that ministry.
Well, let me tell you that they say MIT is ministry.
I don't know, but I don't know what different it is to the other ministry, and because I don't find that necessary. To be honest with you, I don't find that thing necessary. Why putting more people to work in that thing and the other people that they work on the road to live? They can't take care of it.
Okay, my brother. What I would say about the MIT ministry is this, that some elements of what you have called implementation, because there was already implementation together with Ministry of Works, public transport, etc. And that some elements, you actually have a MIT, which has not been constituted properly. That's another story for another day. But you have the so-called MIT, Ministry of Transformation, or whatever they're calling it. Now, many of the things that ministry is doing and has taken on board people to do, there are people that are carrying out the exact same role under the Ministry of Public Works and so on. Let me say that to you again. The same things that they've hired people to do under the ministry, the MIT ministry, there are people carrying out those roles already in the public service in different ministries. All right? So there's a lot of duplication taking place. And that would happen when you don't understand what you're doing in the first place. But there is a certain level of duplication that's taking place between the MIT ministry and some of the other ministries that are parallel to it, like the Ministry of Works, Public Transports, Infrastructure, right? Even some of the people who are within the Ministry of Education and dealing with certain things, you have people who are mirroring them now in MIT. So in other words, you have 2 and 3 people being paid to do the exact same thing. Right? But as I said, that's a discussion we're going to get a little deeper into. Because even when it comes to the funding, you'd realize certain aspects of what the Ministry of Implementation within infrastructure, public utilities, etc. was doing. That funding remains there. It's put back into the budget there. But yet still you have implementation under MIT. Again, with its own budget again, separate to that. So what's really taking place? Yeah, does that make much sense? All right? That's what we need to investigate and find out, yeah?
Administration is riding way back. All your friends in me, you hear me? Most of us do the pre-promotion goes.
440-7377.
All your friends in me. Don't fret me, don't fret me, don't fret me, don't fret me.
I'm really interested when it comes to the Senate sitting in hearing what the farmers and agricultural representative is going to say in relation to this budget. Putting more money doesn't mean that you're doing more. If you've put more money, it's how that money is going to be distributed, and if you're actually going to achieve the goals and the aims that you've set out for the ministry. If it's to increase agricultural production, if it is to assist farmers to make it more beneficial to farmers, whatever it is, or to fishermen and so on. I've already stated my case in relation to zero rating items for both the fishermen and the farmers, poultry producers and so on. I have already stated my case in relation to zero rating and providing concessions for them. But I'm interested in hearing the farmers' representative and what Senator Roderick St. Clair has to say in relation to that. I'm also interested in hearing the labor representative. Yeah, very interested in hearing the labor representative and what he has to say in relation to the present situation. Was it a case, for instance, when it came to the nurses, that a minister approached the nurses directly and said, this is what we're going to do for you all, instead of negotiating with their unions as is accustomed that you're supposed to do? Was it a case that you did not speak to the union representatives of the nurses? Or was it a case that you just went to the nurses and said, this is what we're doing, and then you see it appear in the budget? Yeah? Did their union have anything to do with that? Did their union have a say in that? Was it a buyout of the nurses? Because again, in the same way that you've said contract work is illegal and you're going to make all the Imanis permanent, it's the same thing that was said about the nurses, that our nurses are leaving and they're going and we're going to make them permanent. So if you think $500 a month, $6,000 a year is going to make them permanent, when you take $24,000 for yourself, well, let's see how that works out. Yeah? And I was glad when I heard Honorable Clarice Modest speaking about the fact that even if you are planning to do a new hospital, you're planning to do a new hospital facility, and you added all your bells and whistles and you've put aside how much million for searching for the proper location and doing your testing, because you've got to test your soil and all kind of thing, and you've got to look at different aspects, your egress, how you get in there and you get out and all of that. You'll want to do all of that right. That's one thing. But while you're doing that, you must maintain the system that exists. So now you have the dialysis services being offered at the new facility that was constructed by the new National Party. Now the accident and emergencies there. I know a couple mornings ago I heard someone trying to give the NDC the praise for that. That person has to be mental. Yeah, they have to have a mental issue. I ain't saying they're crazy, but I'm saying they ain't saying either. Yeah? They can't say I said they're crazy, I just say they're insane. Yeah. Because you can't say that the accident and emergency being in a new facility is an achievement of the NDC, no? Had you been listening to post-cabinet, remember there's a thing called post-cabinet press briefing here. NNP used to have it. We know all it doesn't know about that, all they do have them thing now. But there used to be a thing called post-cabinet press briefing. Used to have it every Tuesday, right? And I remember Senator the Honorable Nolan Cox coming there and speaking about that. Working on getting dialysis services available in Carriacou as well. And x-ray services now being available in Carriacou and Carriacou for people of Carriacou and Petit Martinique. So they no longer have to take the boat and come down to get an x-ray done and that sort of thing. Making sure that there was a facility and there were people trained. They had people out training to provide that service on the sister isle. Because what existed before was untenable. You couldn't continue with that. That when somebody possibly has an injury or broken bone, you have to either try to get the plane or you have to try to get them on a boat to come down to Grenada to go and do an x-ray. They're bumping up and down on the water, and a person who possibly has serious internal injuries. Yeah? So that is why the move was made to ensure that you had radiology services available in Carriacou. So at least the people at Carriacou and Petit Martinique could benefit from it. And you never know, people from Union Island might have come down the road too. All right? So those are some of the things that the new National Party was doing in relation to healthcare. The fact that through the foundation that assisted, that you now have the best MRI in the Caribbean, the Southern Caribbean, here in Grenada at that new facility, that you have upgraded radiology services available at that facility. Yeah? That they have gone through the process now and they are digitizing the medical records. They're digitizing those records. So that process has started, so that no longer would it be a case that you're at the hospital and they have to send somebody up to go through a drawer and hope that they find your file inside there. But that everything is online. A doctor going around could just pull it up on a device one time and know your entire medical history there, and also get information from doctors that you have visited in the private sector, get information as well, so that they could make a proper prognosis and diagnosis of what your problems are and how it should be treated. So all of that was already in train. So to come and get the impression that nothing was happening, that is only when all the coming things taking place, that's not true. So I was glad that the Honorable Clarice Modest was able to clear some of that up and was able to give a background in relation to some of those things. Yeah? I'm really glad that that was able to take place. Why does police guy so he's saying play the thing again? Okay, all right, sir. Just remember the phone number 4407377. And hey, I want to thank all of you. When I'm out on the street, you all meet me either when I'm walking, going somewhere, you stop me and say, Sheldon, I'm listening. Sheldon, just make sure you're there tonight. You know, we're on tonight. And that's some people been tuning in. So some people been tuning in on a Fridays. No, we don't have a program on a Friday night. But some people been tuning in on a Friday looking for the program. And so some people even asking me about Saturday and Sunday. Oh God, no, please. All right. But some people been tuning in looking for the program on a Friday. And so we're not doing Friday nights. We're doing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday nights. We're doing the program then. We might look at the possibility of extending certain aspects, either of this program or new programs in the new year. And we're going to do that in consultation with you, because it can't be a situation that I just think this is the best thing to do, and I go ahead and I do it. I want to hear from you. I want your input into the way that we move forward. I had been making a point earlier as well, and I veered off from that point, and I want to come back to it now. And it says to all of you who are supporters of the New National Party to continue to make yourselves ready. Because remember, it is not a situation that as New National Party supporters, you're in the political organization whose leader is the one that makes the decision to whenever an election date is called. You're now in a position where it is the other side. The other one is the one that makes that decision. So you would note that that political organization that is in office now has already spent it's 167 days, yeah? Roughly 167 days they've spent in office so far. It means they're nearly to the halfway point. They're getting to the halfway point at their first year. All right? Because they already spent nearly 6 months, so they're getting to the halfway point at their first year already, yeah. Nearly half of their first year is gone. And by the time they get into the second year and the third year, you know what's going on? A country next door just had an election in 2 years, eh? There's another one that had it in the same thing too earlier this year, in 2 years' time. So, as a political organization, as the institution that the New National Party is, it is important for each and every one of us to remain committed, to remain woke, and to ensure that we are ready at all times. No, I was not a Boy Scout, but I believe in always being prepared. All right? So you have to ensure that you are properly registered, that your name is on the voters list. Make sure your name hasn't suddenly disappeared from the voters list for whatever reason. Somebody go and report, or there's a computer glitch and your name is off the list. Make sure that your name continues to be on the voters list, the registration list, right? And that the young ones that are coming up, who are 18 now, that you get them registered. Who are 17 and will soon be 18, that you keep in contact with them and you make sure they're registered. Because let me tell you all this, in case you don't realize. Every child who is the age of 13 right now, in 5 years, is a voter. Let me say that again. Every child who is 13 right now, or 14 right now, in 5 years' time, is a voter. So all the 14-year-olds, 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds will be eligible to vote if an election is called 5 years from today. So you need to make sure that you keep them informed and that you get them registered. All right? Because I'm going to tell you, the other side is trying their very best to get every one of them onto their side. Yeah? So whether it's they're going to be using the social media or they're going to be using other means, they're going to try as much as possible to capture them. Because here's what. They are already saying in the circles they can't count on the young people that voted for them this election to continue with them and vote for them the next election. Because they believe, I'm telling you what they're saying that the minds of the young people are fickle. That 1 minute they will support you, next minute they don't support you. So they are aiming now. That's why you see them going around those secondary schools and hanging around the kids and that kind of thing. Their intention is to try to get those young people who may number as much as 10,000 by the next election as new voters to support them. Your job as supporters of the New National Party is to get them registered and supporting the New National Party. You all have your homework. Make sure you do it so that when the bell ring, you can't say, Miss, I forget my homework home. Miss, my dog eat my homework. Miss, my brother throw down thing on top of my homework, it ain't finished. You have to just present your homework. So make sure, because this ain't no joke thing. You're a serious political party. Your campaigning, your canvassing should never stop. Because you could find yourself ending up like you see a certain political party next door. They end up without a single seat. They had 2 seats and they end up with none now. Because 2 independents run in they had 3 seats and they end up with none now. 2 independents run and was able to win in seats that they may have won. But that's the situation with them because they got caught with their pants down. Make sure your pants up and you're wearing suspenders. Because you do not know. You're not in charge. You do not know. And especially with some of what you've been hearing in the background there. Some of what you've been hearing about what has been taking place, about the interactions between MPs. And some of the things that you're hearing surrounding specific MPs. You're not sure if they could make a year, much less make 5. But you cannot base your chances as a political organization on if the other political organization falls apart. You have to do the work, the political work that is necessary to bring your party to the point of, if a snap election is called, that you are ready. And not only ready, you're ready and you take it. Because you don't want to take them 1 term and make it into 2. Let them take their 1 term and go. So do the political work that is necessary to ensure that that happens. Because remember, you just heard people who come out and telling you one figure, you realize in the actual document that's being used for the spending is another figure. That they give you the high figure out there, and they smile and they give you the high figure and they're taking all the praise. But when you check the document, the figure is different. Yeah? The figure is different. You're seeing a set of people who, after people were given their houses in Carriacou, all of a sudden, you're hearing about people that were given the houses by the government of Grenada, now being told you have to reapply. If I lie, say I lie. If I lie, come out. They'll have the opportunity to come out and say that we're lying. But that is what you're hearing. And then you have the other houses. The houses that they gave up, that their political organization gave up, that the NNP came back and get. And now they're trying to tell people you have to reapply and it's until June next year and all sort of thing because they want to frustrate as much as they can and then give all the places to the supporters. I say it as it is. They want to give all the places to their supporters. So you have to ensure that the political work that needs to be done, and all of us know what that political work is. Constant vigilance. Yeah? Ensuring that the message of the new national party goes out there. You have to ensure things like this. For instance, you have X amount of you listening to this program. How many of you have subscribed to the YouTube page? How many of you have liked the Facebook page? And in both instances, how many of you have shared it via different platforms? Yes, click and share on the Facebook. You can click and you can share the YouTube. You could share it via WhatsApp. You can share it even via SMS. You send the hyperlink. You can send it to different people in their inbox on Facebook and so on. But how many of you have done that? That's part of the homework. That's part of the work that you have to do. Because if you do not do the homework, you could find yourself after the bell ring ending up like a false start. You won't even start the race. Warning you all, do the work that is necessary. Double check the canvas list. Make sure that no people who shouldn't be on that list. Don't wait until when there's an election to do like you're going over a list and you're canvassing to find out that these 40-something people not living in this area have not lived in this area for the last 5-10 years, but all of a sudden you're seeing the name on a list in that area. They have not followed the legal requirement of living in that area for a year, but the name is on the list. The name is on the list. Have you done anything to get rid of that and to sort that out? Or are you waiting until you hear election call to take the few days for everybody to rush and make applications? Do the work that is necessary and do it now. Folks, that's all the time we have for talking points for tonight and for this week. It's been wonderful being here with you. But before I leave, just to let you all know, talking points will be on during the day tomorrow for the budget debate. So you'll be hearing the budget debate via talking points tomorrow. So via the YouTube page and the Facebook page will be on tomorrow following the Parliament sitting. All right. And then on Sunday, we'll be having the rebroadcast of tonight's program. We'll be having that taking place. Maybe tonight, maybe a mixed match of some of the programs will be taking place on Sunday morning, God's willing, between 10 and 12, we'll be having a rebroadcast taking place. All right, so that's all the time we have for Talking Points this week. My name's Sheldon Scott. I'm out of here. It's been wonderful being with you, interacting with you. I want to say a special thank you to all of the callers who have been calling and interacting and so on. All of you on the live who has been giving your input and just shedding light on certain issues and spreading the news and so on. I'd like to thank each and every one of you. And in everything you say and everything you do, do it safe and secure. Want to be speaking to and with you and not about you. Love each and every one of you. I am out of here.
But certain things that I see going on, yeah man, we should close down our station from the nation. Why? Cause all you fretting me. We work good about you, don't give a fuck. Administration is writing we